So when and where were you when you first found out you were going to be drafted, and what was your reaction?
I was in Central High School at the time, and the war was going on, and I more or less was sort of being drafted or volunteered by just signing up for the thing. And then that was in 1944. And I was old enough to go in, 18 years old, and that was my first reaction.
So when you heard this, were you fully aware of how many people were dying and how serious the situation was?
Yeah, it was. I mean, naturally, that stuff was in the paper all the time, but we didn't have much conflict, no conflict going on here in the States. It was all over in Europe, and I'm sure we had enough help over there with the Army. And naturally, I was a young kid. That's all I was, and I wanted to go, and I signed up, and that was it. So I ended up going into the Army. It was down on in Clifton by the firehouse there. That's mostly where all the draftees went from. And naturally, we went down to Fort Dix. That was our first stop, and that's something I'll never forget because I was only a young kid, and it was raining like mad down there, and they had tents set up on both sides of the area, and that's where we were living for the next day, whatever, until we go out and take our training. And because of the bad weather, there was one guy that got drafted or whatever. He was standing out there in the rain, and he was yelling and screaming. He wants his mama. He wants his mama. He wanted to go home. And they took him away right away and put him where he had to go. I guess, I don't know. But anyway, that was my first experience.
What did that do to you? Were there a lot of people must have been afraid because they knew a lot of people were going to die, right?
Well, nobody can say who's going to die and how many's going to live or whatever. But actually, your country is in war, and you need help. I mean, this fellow went a little wacky and then crying out in the middle of the rainy street and mixed in front of all the tents. That's where we were living, just for a day or two till we got shipped out.
Did that scare everybody, seeing him?
No, I don't think so. I mean, actually, I was kind of young to even worry about it, you know, and I think there was other people the same as me. And then they designated what I went in there to be was a cook, because that was my trade. I was a cook by trade, and I was working in restaurants and stuff in my times off. And we took off from that point the next day, whatever. I just happened to be going to camp in South Carolina. We were only there a week, and they cut that short too, because things were really getting rough. Things were getting busy over there, and that's where we were headed. They stopped all training and everything. They give us one delay en route, one day from there to my home to say goodbye to my mother or whoever was home, and that was it. Then we went right away over to the East Coast there. I mean, this is 60, 70 years ago, you know.
So how long was your training supposed to be before they cut it off after 10 days?
Maybe a couple weeks, maybe more, maybe a month.
So that's not much training to begin with.
No. They had, they had these rifles set up on these cement stands and stuff. It's very secure. And they would shoot those as you would crawl underneath them, and with your gear and everything, find out how it is to crawl, you know, to be.
So there was no physical training. Your basic training was how to use a gun.
That's it. That's more or less. I mean, we were heading right up to the front. I mean, within a couple of days. That took a couple of weeks really, because they were using these convoy boats, and they were traveling with the boats in the center and armed ships around us to protect from any ships getting torpedoed and whatever.
So was there daily training on what was life like for those 2 weeks?
That's I was just going to say. And coming onto the ship, we got all our gear, and I got onto the ship, and we walked over to the hall. We had to go down where we were going to sleep and stay and everything. And then when we went down into the hold where we were going to stay, I looked around, and you had on both sides 4 sheets of canvas, and that was where we were going to sleep and stay there with all our gear and everything at night, and just get up and go out and eat and whatever we did. And I was one of the lucky ones that I sort of made like a person that was going to keep the decks clean. And every morning we had to get up, and I had 8 or 10 kids or whatever working with me, keep swabbing the decks and keep them clean, just going overseas to keep us occupied, I guess. And that's what I remember until we got to Ireland, and then we had to go over the top of Ireland. And it was like the water was very, very rough there, and I'm not a very good man for water. And I'll tell you, the water, it was coming over the ship sides, and the water was, I mean, really like a bad storm going. We went up over the top of Ireland, down between Ireland and England, and landed in Liverpool. That's where we landed. We got off the boat, and then we got on a train to go down to the English Channel where we went across. That's what.
So you get to Liverpool, it's been 2 weeks. Any
Right.
communication with your family?
No.
Was this the first time you had been away from home?
Yes.
Okay. What did you feel? Did you feel excited, nervous?
Yeah, I was feeling pretty good. I mean, it was an experience, and it had to happen so fast. I mean, and we had to pass to get over the channel. When we got over the channel, we were in France. Then we start traveling to Belgium, Holland, to where the war was.
Were you ever allowed to get off the ship before you got to the war?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a.
So was everybody hoping to get off the ship and see women and meet people? And...
Well, that's what we did when we got to Europe. That we met people like in Holland. We'd see the people out there cleaning their sidewalks and stuff like that. And it was an experience. And I'll tell you the truth. It's kind of hard to bring back all those things that we done, and it was very, very interesting. When we got to Europe, when we got over the Channel, and we start traveling up to the front, that's what we did.
Okay, so before we talk about getting to the front, tell me what you did in Holland. How long were you there?
Oh, we weren't in much along that place, very long at all. And we were in all places after the war ended. Then we would visit and do what we had time to do. But we were heading to the war zone. That's what we were headed for.
By the way, on the ship, on the way, was there training every day, or what were you doing?
No.
24 hours a day?
Nothing. I had charge of this, cleaning up the decks, swabbing the decks, and keeping the group clean up the decks and stuff like that. But we weren't doing nothing as far as military.
Okay. How long were you in Holland? Days? I mean, hours, days?
Very good, very short. I mean, this is well, the war's still going on.
Right.
We just got into Holland, and we had to wait, I guess, a day or two before we got on a rack body truck, and we all stood in the back of it, and that's where it drove us up to the front. And you look out in front of you for half a mile, whatever, you see the tracer bullets going, you see explosions, and you see, I mean, that was where the war was, and that's where we were headed. So
when you're seeing these bullets, and you know this is it, what are you and your friends thinking?
Oh, we were waiting till we get up to the front, like that's where we were headed. And when we did, we ended up in the basement of the town. Somebody were there, and then the next morning we woke up, and two GIs walked past with about 15 prisoners in front of them, And we looked out the cellar window. You could see. I mean, you'd seen all this. I mean, it was a brand new experience. I mean, it was something that.
What were you told you were going to be? Where were you told you were going, and what were you going to do when you got there?
Well, we were going to the 102nd Infantry Division, and we were broken down. We were in the anti-tank company, and we traveled, got with them, and that's where all the action started. We seen Germans coming out,
Where?
popping.
Where was this?
Probably Holland or one of those, because they were all not taken yet, you know.
So all of this was in Holland? Okay.
Well, Holland, I'm not even sure of that even today, because this is all stuff that happened in the war. You had to get up to the front, and that's where we were going. I seen people wounded being brought back. I seen the first aid workers on them, and the first night we were there, we got up to the front and we were staying in the basement. That's where we had to stay until we got settled with our division or company, whichever you want to call it. With more or less our company, because it was the anti-tank company, 406th Infantry of the 102nd Division, I guess.
102nd Infantry Division, 9th Army, correct?
Right. That's what we were. My job is that we were in anti-tank company, and we had, I think, 6 or 7 people in our group, and we had set up with some bazookas and stuff like that to stop the tanks from moving around, because they had the big Tiger tanks, and man, they were. We had felt like toys with the tanks we had. So
the tanks you were attacking, could you actually see them with your own eyes, or you would just target them miles away?
Oh no, no miles away. You could see them. You could see them. They were coming. They were trying to get away. What just happened to be that at the time that we went over there, it was 1945 in January, whatever it was. It was all winter weather, and our company was in charge of fighting the tanks, and they had Tiger tanks, and their tanks were. I mean, ours were like toys compared to what theirs were.
So now, this is serious stuff you're talking about here. You can actually, with your own naked eye, see the tanks that are about to kill you if you don't kill them first.
Yeah,
so
well,
what are you doing? What are your movements? What machinery are you operating? What are you seeing?
That's the thing. I just said that in our company, we were the anti-tank company. We were there to try and stop a lot of these tanks.
Right, but can you take me step by step? What would you do? Would you target and say, well, 20 degrees ahead, or who was in charge of putting the missiles to destroy the tank? Explain to me that nuts and bolts.
Well, we had our own group with the tank that supplied the missiles and stuff. I mean, that was somebody in the tank carrying missiles over. Open up the ship, put them in there, seal it up, and they start aiming at it. That's all by another part of the company.
Okay. So, and is there chaos everywhere? Is there noise, bombs, bullets everywhere?
I don't think there was much chaos. I didn't see much chaos. I mean, being something new, it was more or less what I expected.
Yeah, but you're telling me there's a German tank within eyesight coming at you.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
if I see a German tank coming at me, I'm scrambling to shoot that tank before it shoots me.
Yeah, well, that's what you got to do. But a lot of times, their tanks are not as maneuverable as ours, Shermans. I had 2 pictures, which I couldn't find. I don't know where it was. There was a Sherman tank on this end of the block. There was a Tiger on this end of the block. The Tiger tank was only there because their tracks were disabled. They couldn't move. The Sherman on the other end was there. He had a hole right through the center of the tank, because that Tiger he had an 88 millimeter that shoots. I mean, knocked our Sherman tank. That's it. And then when that Tiger was crippled, it couldn't move because the tracks were broke. They grenades and bazookas. That's what they did. They shot the tracks. And that's